Hi, everyone, and welcome to OEM Update, where we talk about everything you need to know about this year's vehicle model lines in order to better sell them. My name is Megan Cusack, editor of Motorcycle and Powersports News, and today we're going to be talking about the 2025 BMW R 1300 GS Adventure. This new adventure bike is going to be rolling into dealerships by the end of the year, but let's go ahead and dive deeper into what exactly it has to offer. For that, though, we're going to go straight to the OEM source. Joining me today to give us an overview of the 2025 R 1300 GS Adventure is Shawn McLean, Product and Accessories Manager at BMW Motorrad USA. Shawn, thank you so much for hopping on to speak with us today.
Thank you, Megan. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. All right, so can you give us a brief introduction to the 2025 R 1300 GS Adventure? Which types of customers are looking for this adventure bike?
Well, the 2025 R1300 GS Adventure is, of course, a successor to the 1250 GS Adventure. And the customers, I think, for this bike, they're going to be coming from a few different areas. Of course, we have those customers that have been perennial, large adventure riders in the BMW brand, have probably been riding 1250s and maybe even back to 1200s or earlier. And they're just wanting that next big thing. We'll have some customers I know that have been riding either the 1250 GS or the GS Adventure. Last year, or actually earlier this year, we launched the 1300 GS, and now they've seen that and the technology, and they've seen online, I'm sure, the 1300 GS Adventure, and they're wondering, okay, which direction do I go now? And so they're waiting to actually see one in person, and may then once they see it and ride it, of course, they'll be coming on board. And I think the other large group of people coming to this bike will be, it's an amazing thing. The adventure segment in general has really grown over the last few years, and thankfully, at this point, shows no signs of letting up. In the last few years, there's been a significant increase in the adventure segment, and a lot of people coming into it for the first time. And they're riding these bikes. They're having some, great experiences on the bikes. Maybe off highway, maybe not, but they're enjoying what the bikes have to offer. And those riders that find out, wow, I really do like this. Yeah, maybe I have another bike in the garage, but I love the adventure segment. I love the comfortableness of the bikes, the capability. And now that I'm in this, maybe I'm looking for, something else that's out there, and without, trying really not to sound arrogant or anything, but BMW, a little over 40 years did invent this segment essentially. And by some measure, we can be considered the benchmark for it. And maybe those customers that are coming into it that are really enjoying it are thinking, yeah, maybe I need to step up my game a little bit and see what else is out there. Go ride the bike, certainly. We invite people to do that and see if it's meant for them. And I think a lot of people, and we've seen that with the 1300 GS, where they're coming from other brands and saying, wow, okay, yeah, this is where I want to be. Those largely, I think, where the customers will be coming from.
Okay. Now, you mentioned this was, the next step from the R1250 GS Adventure. What was upgraded over that 2024 model into, the R1300 GS Adventure?
It's, we could probably spend quite a bit of time on that, but let's hit some of the important things and maybe start at the front of the bike, if you will. For decades on the large adventure bikes, we've had the telelever front end, and it has certain advantages and certain disadvantages, if you will. And that front end has always gotten a bit of criticism as not having maybe all the feel that someone would want out of a front end. And that's what's a huge improvement on the 1300 GS Adventure. It now has the Evo telelever. And what that means really is, the criticism always was because of lack of feel. And now it's more direct. And the reason for that, if I could explain it, is because an adventure bike, and even you could even consider it on our RT touring bike, the handlebars are typically wide and high. And because of the way a telelever front end works, the forks in a telelever do not go straight up and down as they would in a conventional front end. It's just the nature of the way it works. It has that A-arm up front that has to pivot on an arc, basically. And what that means is if you connect the handlebars directly to the forks, essentially, you get a bit of an unsettled roll in the handlebars. So you always had to have a little bit of disconnect there, which created that indirect feeling to the front end. Now with the Evo telelever, there's a direct connection between the handlebars, the top triple clamp, and the forks. But now we've introduced what's actually called a flex element in it. And you can see it on the top triple clamp. If you look at one of these bikes, it's a little piece of banded stainless steel, basically, and that's what allows the flex. That is flexing, allowing the rider now to be more directly connected to the front end. So that's a great improvement, and we hope and believe that takes away a lot of those criticisms of the front end. With the 1250, we also have a lot of rider aids introduced that weren't available on the 1250. For instance, active cruise control, which allows you to pace a vehicle in front if you wanted to. Forward collision warning, turn lane change warning, I believe is what we actually call it. So if you're trying to make a turn left or right or lane change, you get a little warning in your rear view mirrors. We have to talk about the automated shift assistant, which is essentially an automatic transmission. From the rider's perspective, it will act like an automatic transmission. Internally, it's actually a 6-speed manual transmission, but the bike is capable of shifting for you if you want. Not all bikes will have it. It's an available option, and the rider always has control. So you can put it in automatic mode where the bike will just do its thing, or you can put it in D mode or manual mode where now you can control the shifting points. On the 1300, we introduced adaptive vehicle height control, and at BMW, we like our long names. This basically allowed the bike to lower when it came to a stop and raise up 30 millimeters once you were up to speed. So we're bringing that technology to the Adventure. But what we're also doing with the Adventure is but the Adventure, as opposed to the GS, it's always been about an inch and a half taller, which prevented some people from being able to comfortably ride on the Adventure. So not only do we have adaptive vehicle height, but we have adaptive vehicle height control comfort. So it still does that 30 millimeter up and down, but now the entire baseline is 20 millimeters lower. So between that, our available seat heights, we can fit anyone from a 31.1 inch seat height all the way up to 36 inches. So we can accommodate a lot of people very comfortably. The bike has one thing we wanted to do for not just this bike, but for our customers in general, for the brand, and for all Model Year 25s, is all the Model Year 25s come with a complimentary first service. You know, I've experienced it myself, and I know many customers do. You get a new bike, you're excited. The first service, which is typically referred to as the 600-mile service, you know, if you're excited about a bike, you can do that in a weekend, certainly within a week, maybe two at the most. And we want to give an opportunity for those customers to come back to the dealership, have another positive experience, not one where they're dreading, you know, or anything like that. Come back, bring your bike in, get it serviced, no money out of pocket, spend time at the dealership. You know, these bikes have a tremendous amount of technology in them. So here's another opportunity after a customer has ridden a bike, come in, they probably have some questions about some of the tech on it. Maybe they can do things or set things up a little better. So an overall great experience we want them to have again, in addition to that original delivery date. So there's a number of things that this bike has that the 1250 never had. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, all those technological features you just mentioned there. I mean, to me, that sounds like what's out there in 2025 automobiles, and something that's missing in a lot of motorcycles nowadays. Um, as a company, as BMW, are you looking to your auto manufacturing side for guidance on getting this in your motorcycles, or has this just always been from the get go, like, hey, we're going to try and pace this as closely to automobiles as possible?
I think being a company that produces cars and motorcycles, and we have done that for a very long time now, there's a lot of shared technology. I'm my office is here in Woodcliff Lake, but I'm working, I look over and I see car colleagues that work for BMW, that work for the Mini brand, because BMW owns Mini. If I look a little further over, I see Rolls-Royce colleagues. So we're all together, we're all sharing information. We have a lot of advantages because of that, whether it's just technology, whether it's processes, although we can be a bit onerous in processes, I will admit, but we have a lot of shared, synergies, as we would typically call them, to help us navigate certain things, use some of our, whether it's, our parts processes, our warranty processes. It's all shared technology. So absolutely, it's something that we work together on. I think the cars do tend to have, they're a little bit ahead of us, tend to be, but that's understandable. There's so many more resources put into the car side, which is certainly understandable. But we're right there behind them, chasing them every way. And there's a lot of shared technology. I was just talking with Oleg, from our press department earlier today, and we were talking about motorcycle and car technology and how we're working on, communication between vehicles for greater safety in the future. So there's a lot happening within the whole company and between the internal brands. Absolutely.
All right. So, speaking of new features on the 1300 GS Adventure, can you tell me a bit about the new engine that's powering it?
The engine, it shares a few things with the 1250, but many new things. It still has the shift cam technology, which alters the intake cam profile, which creates very smooth and efficient running at low to mid RPMs. And at high RPMs is where you really create a lot of power. Cooling is different on it. It's not so targeted now. It's more throughout the entire motor. I think the biggest thing with the motor that customers, they may not see, but they will notice it when they ride the bike, and that is for many years with Boxer, and still with some Boxers today, like the R18, for example, that family. For many years, our transmissions have been bolted to the back of the motor. With the R1300, first with the GS and now with the GS Adventure, that transmission, which is typically very heavy with steel shafts and steel gears, is now placed under the crankshaft. What that does is shorten the motor. You're taking this heavy transmission, you're placing it a little more forward on the bike, so that weight becomes a little more forward biased for greater handling. And also the big thing is that heavy transmission is now centralized and creates a lower center of gravity. So people who have ridden these bikes, first with the 1300, because the GSA is not yet in the country, but soon to arrive, is they notice that when they're riding it on the road and they're going through turns and they're saying, boy, this bike handles so much easier, and it flicks into the turns a lot quicker. And that's because of this lower and more centralized center of gravity. That's the big thing. There are other advantages now that we have a shorter engine block. We can essentially basically have the same wheelbase, but a longer swing arm. And that aids in greater traction, particularly when you're doing off-highway riding. So there's some advantages there too. But that's the big thing, I think, with the motor. It's the customers will really notice it actually riding.
All right. That's fantastic to hear. Now, speaking of motors and all that, can you break down some of the high level specs for us on this vehicle?
It it is exactly 1300 cc. It's 110 pound-feet of torque. I believe that's up about 5 foot-pounds of torque. 145 horsepower. I think that's up 9 horsepower from the 1250. Like I said, the seat height anywhere from 31.1 up to 36 inches. It's got the big fuel tank that the Adventures have always had, 7.9 gallons. The bike will come in four variants, let's call them. I hate to call it a base bike because typically the bikes will come to the U.S. very highly spec'd. It's what we found our vast majority of our customers want. But the base bike will be in racing red, but still have all the tech that's available on it. We'll have one in our very popular GS Trophy, which a GS Trophy, I believe, is happening very soon in Namibia. So it's the red, white, and blue color scheme. It'll have some things on it that, if you're a rider that maybe wants to do a little more off highway, it's going to be set up a little more towards that with more of you can get a more of a straight fly line, if you will, on this seat, like a bench seat would typically be on an off-highway bike. A little bit smaller windscreen, a little better protection on the auxiliary lights, things like that. We'll also have the very popular for us, the triple black version. And this is a version, if you want, you're going to have a very comfortable passenger and rider seat with seat heating, larger windscreen, very much you're doing touring, you're doing a fair amount of riding with a passenger. That's probably what you want. For those customers that want, the sort of very special livery in a bike, we'll offer the option 719 color. And I can explain that in a minute where that comes from. But it's the Aurelius Green Metallic Matte. You've seen this on the 1300 GS. Beautiful metallic matte green, gold rims, a lot of nice features on it, some very nice billet like levers and foot pegs and things like that. All the sort of top of the line stuff. And just a quick aside there, because I think a lot of people don't know the history of option 719. We sort of reintroduced the option 719 a few years ago with some aluminum billet pack things, some nice mirrors and levers, really high quality pieces. That all comes from many decades ago. We're talking, from the mid 20th century, when an order for a bike came into the factory and it was non-standard. And everything is driven by options code. It would be written down as option 719. That means there was something different about this order. Maybe it was a non-standard color. Maybe it was a different seat that was not usual. So we've reintroduced that a few years ago. So this option 719 is things that are not typical. We don't produce a lot of them. They're a little more hard to come by, but we try to put the best of the best on these bikes, both in features, but also the paint schemes are very special. Just beautiful bikes. The bike should be in dealerships before the end of the year. I looked yesterday and there were 265 bikes on the water, soon to arrive at our New Jersey port. Pricing will be announced as we get closer to launch. So that'll be announced probably fairly soon.
All right. Now, so what is BMW planning to do to help dealers move the new 2025 units?
Well, we always, I think a big thing that for BMW that is helped us and helped our customers, and particularly helping those that may be new to the brand, is we've always been very strong on our demo program. Whether it's not just the going to events, whether it be Bike Week or we'll have a big event at Barber Vintage Festival in October. Whether it's dealer events where we take our demo trucks, but we always encourage our dealers to have a rather robust demo fleet, not just with these bikes, but all of our models. To us, that's what sells motorcycles, is getting people to experience the bikes. We can have a great online website and a lot of information out there, but actually experiencing the bikes and what they can do for you and the experiences that they can bring you, there's no substitute for that. Right now, actually, if someone wanted to buy a 1250 GS Adventure, now's the time to buy one, because financially there are some incentives on those. Where the last of the stocks are moving through the dealerships now, and we should be primed to launch the 1300 Adventure certainly by the end of the year, hopefully sooner.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And so, last question here for you. What are some of the most popular accessories for, the R1250, the 1300 GS, just any of these adventure bikes that you think will be popular for the upcoming 1300 GS Adventure?
Probably, I would say the two main things that all of our customers are looking for, and it's probably anyone that rides any sort of adventure bike, is number one is luggage, or in general, let's say carrying capacity. And as very traditional for us on the adventure bikes, we'll offer aluminum side cases and a top case. What's different about the 1300 as opposed to the 1250 is the left case will have a USB charging port. The top case will have a USB charging port and will be lit inside, which is very helpful. We'll also have, if you look at the details of the bike, they're more so on the 1300 than the 1250. There are a lot more tie down points. Besides where the side cases mount, there are places there where you can strap things down. We're making more, I guess, what I would almost call parcels, smaller parcels where you can put various trinkets, let's call it, and ways to mount those on the bike, not just mounting to the side cases. But if you look closely at the 1300 GS Adventure, on the front of the fuel tank, on either side, there's flat areas there where you can mount things. Just on the outside where the radiator covers are, there are mounting points there. And we make parcels to mount to those places. We make parcels to mount to essentially like behind your knees on the side of the frames. So a lot of it is carrying capacity and where you can put those things so they're very useful, still comfortable, don't interfere with the maneuverability of the bike or a rider's ability to handle the bike in various situations. So that's, I think, a large thing for people. They are loading these things up. And that's one thing maybe I should mention is what's different about the Adventure as opposed to, say, the regular GS is this bike is meant for being loaded and going on tours. If I was someone that maybe did more solo riding, maybe in the wide spectrum that these bikes cover, maybe tending to do a little more off-highway riding, I'm probably going to want the GS. If I'm doing a little less off-highway, if I'm maybe more often than not, maybe carrying a passenger, maybe doing a little bit longer tours, loading the bike down, I'm going to want the Adventure. One thing that's different about the Adventure as opposed to the GS is the rear subframe, where on the GS it has a sort of a one-piece monocoque, if you will, cast aluminum rear subframe, where on the Adventure it's an extruded aluminum tubing with a few forged pieces. And the whole idea of that is it's going to be much stronger. It allows for a little bit longer seats for comfort, but it's more capable of handling those side cases, the top case, a passenger, all the weight that this bike can carry. So it's going to be the workhorse for, I think, for a lot of people covering a lot of miles. The other thing, to get back to the question, what else is popular is if you're going someplace, you got to know where you're going and how to get there. So navigation is a huge thing. And there's a couple of different options there that we offer. For a few years now, we've been offering our Motorrad Connected app. And I use that this morning. I use it every day commuting to work and back because I want to see, if nothing, I do know how to get to work, by the way, but it's nice to see. I want to see live traffic. So if there's a place maybe I should avoid going home or coming into work, that's very helpful. So the Motorrad Connected app is there, runs off your phone, integrates very nicely with the bike. You can get turn-by-turn directions on the TFT screen. It works great. If someone wants a dedicated GPS unit, we offer that. And 99% of the bikes that come to the U.S. will have GPS preparation on it. So they'll be ready to mount a GPS unit. Last year we launched the Connected Ride Navigator, which is an updated, dedicated navigator. It's really become a central hub for all things connectivity, whether it's your phone, whether it's navigation, whether it's media, listening to music. It's sort of the hub for that. And that's going through a lot of regular improvements. Whether it's the maps, whether it's the functionality of it. We've taken a lot of dealer feedback and found out ways that we can improve it. Our colleagues in Munich are very eager to, since this thing was basically designed by us from the ground up, we have a lot of opportunity right now to make it whatever we want it to be. So there's a lot of communication from our dealers to us, to our colleagues in Munich. And we're developing this thing as quickly and as robustly as we can. But really, I think those are certainly the big things that come to mind: luggage, navigation. There's a lot of people that like to individualize their bikes. Although we feel we have quite a bit of variety of seats to offer. You never seem to satisfy everyone, but whether it's heights, whether it's seat heating, some adjustability of the seats. Everyone likes that. But I find myself, if particularly with a bike with 7.9 gallons of fuel, if I've covered 250 miles, I'm ready to get off and take a break anyway. So,
yeah, no, as you said, yeah, luggage, navigation, and even just seat comfort. I think those hit all the basic points. And I loved the fact that you guys are thinking outside the box and using, non-traditional spaces on the motorcycle for even more areas for luggage. I think that's just phenomenal there. As someone who likes to pack a lot, no matter where I go, I can see that being very attractive.
Because there's never enough space. Well, you always want to take something else with you,
Exactly. Well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today, Shawn, and thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with us about the 2025 R1300 GS Adventure.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for this opportunity. We're looking forward to getting the bikes in dealerships and, of course, into customers' hands and going down the road.
For more information about the Adventure line or to become a BMW Motorrad dealer, head to bmwmotorcycles.com. And as always, stay tuned to MPN for more of the latest and greatest in motorcycle and powersports news.